Hello, this is Arkeem Ra. Welcome to Fractal Weapons. I'm here with Matt Tracy, and today we're going to be talking about forbidden and hidden technology, the technology that's being used in the programs. Welcome to the show, Matt. Thanks for being on.
What's up? Thanks for having me.
So I just want to get down to brass tacks today and just really just start talking about like how a lot of this technology works. And I know that you've done it before on Penny's show and stuff, but I just have some really specific questions and stuff. So I just thought it would be good to do this and just kind of have a really just the more we talk about this technology, the better, I think. So just to get people to be able to wrap their minds around it a little bit. So
I hope I can answer what you got, but my knowledge base was kind of focused.
Well, we'll just get into it and try to explain it the best we can, I guess. I do know that I've heard you talk about the technology that's used behind abductions, and I just wanted to add, like, I guess go into like, what does a typical military Black Ops program abduction look like?
Depends on transport media they use. Either as a kid, I'm using. Is video good?
You're like breaking up really bad. You might want to go to just audio or something. Yeah.
It's weird. Let's see what that does. See how I can do this. Stop video. How's that?
That's good. You're coming in clear.
Because you're coming in 5x5 on my end.
Yeah, you're coming in clear now. Okay, so I couldn't even hear you because it was so garbled. So you can just start all over again. So how does the technology behind abductions and like work, and like what does a typical military Black Ops abduction look like?
There's two different methods that I have experienced. There's the different transport methods. There's by ship, which usually in my memories, it's a triangular shaped ship. Then there's portal where they open a plate inside a home, walk in, grab you, pull you through, close the portal.
Okay, how do they do that?
There's different kinds of portal tech.
How do they do that undetected?
Well, they're the ones doing all the detection. So what do you mean by undetected? They have free reign.
Well, I just mean like normally people in these programs, I mean, we're the anomaly where we remember, we know this is happening to us. We even get memories back and have specific memories of things that occurred, and we know actually what happened in these sort of alternate lives that we have, right? But there's a lot of people where maybe they have some sort of inkling that they're abducted, but they don't understand that what's occurring, you know. I guess that.
So you're asking how do they keep from remembering it?
How do they keep people from remembering it? How do they keep people from realizing that it's happening to them? How do people's loved ones not realize that, you know, this is happening? Like,
well, there is this tech that they use. They call it the black box because that's what it looks like. It looks like a box. It's black. So, and it gives off certain electromagnetic frequencies that interact with the human brain and put it to sleep. They'll put everyone within a certain range to sleep, even neighbors. It depends on how wide they have the range for it. They could put a whole block to sleep.
Wow, and that makes sense. So that's basically how they're able to do it undetected. I can't hear you. You're broken up. Hello?
Coming in Hey, I'm here. You're coming in clear as rain to me.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. You dropped out again. Okay.
That's weird.
Yeah, I think that this is getting messed with. It doesn't even make sense. But we're gonna plow through
Yeah,
anyway.
you're crystal clear on my end, video and audio. So that's weird.
Um, so essentially what we have is we have portal technology. They're able to abduct you. And can you explain how they're able to put you back after you've lived the whole life without realizing that you served?
Um, Depends on the technology they used during your service. There's the cloning technology, and then there's technology they use if you're using your original body, that they have medical technology that allows them to manipulate your body on the cellular level. They can age regress you. They can rebuild the telomeres on your DNA. They can literally do anything to you on the genetic level, on the cellular. It
and
just
and your DNA and the way that
it's amazing.
yeah, and they have what is you could call basically a save file of the way that you were
Yeah,
exactly as you were when they grabbed you.
when
So they
they took you.
basically
Yeah, the
exactly,
moment.
and they just plug that in, and it's like a holographic machine, but it's also interacting with actual matter. It's not like non-physical
Well,
hologram.
word holographic, a lot of people don't understand what that means. It doesn't mean hologram on Star Trek. It means the actual definition of the word hologram, which in science is different. It involves, and I haven't done much research into holographic sciences. Um, but it involves fractals. Basically, it's a concept in mathematics. Holographics in mathematics would be considered something like a fractal, that no matter how small of the piece you get, you can rebuild the entire image from that tiny little piece, because that tiny little piece has the entire image in it.
Okay, that makes sense.
So when you get into science fields, imagine taking that idea of holographics that they use in mathematics, apply it to field manipulation. So they're creating this platform, this electrical field. They're putting you, or this field could be made of lasers and photons, and they're a holographic pattern, and your body emits your biofield, every level of your field, your etheric does this naturally. This is just how nature functions. Nature functions holographically. Anytime you hear in physics and science where they refer to the universe as a hologram, they're not really the universe a fake, made up, generation of things. They're referring to this concept of holographic,
Okay, and that
where
makes
no
sense.
matter no matter how small you get, you can literally rebuild everything else from the information of the tiniest component. A single photon, a single component of light, no matter where you grab it from, will have the memory, the pattern of the entire universe. That's what holographic means. So that's what they're referring to. So that's not the hardware technology itself, that's the manner in which they're interacting with the environment. And in medical technology, the environment would be your body.
Very great explanation, Matt. I'm glad I had you on. That's why I wanted to talk to you. I knew you'd be able to explain it. Yeah, good job, man. When do they normally like, and I guess this is one where maybe you're able to answer it, maybe you're not, but let's talk about it. When do they normally take somebody for these programs? How does it work? They take you when you're a baby? Do they take you at age 3? I mean, like how does the process of taking someone, fracturing them, making alters, all of that, like, how does that work? And then are you just forever stuck in this? Is there a way to get out of it? That's a lot of questions at once. I'm sorry, but like, you catch my
Let's
drift
start with
though?
the first question. Yeah, I got it. Let's start with the first question. How do they, take you? And I presume you're asking, do they choose you? When do they take you? And that. For it all depends on what generation you are, because those factors change. They change their how they do that, how they choose you, when they take you, and their process changes with every generation. It's like they're modifying it and adapting it. They're trying to make the process more efficient. With my generation, which would be all around your generation also, things are not the same as, say, with Penny's generation. Penny's generation, they've got a map of the bloodlines, and we're talking about the royal families. They like taking people of bloodlines of the royal families, of Native American descent, and of Nordic descent. These particular genetic bloodlines have the highest amount of ET DNA within each individual, and it allows for higher potential of psionic abilities. I've heard people have a hard time understanding what that word means. You can interchange psionic and psychic abilities. Those two words are the same thing. Psychic would be more of an esoteric word, where psionic is the word that is being used in military documents. So more of a scientific version, where, for instance, the word soul or spirit body, when astro projecting, they don't use that in those terms in the military. They use the transient body, the term they use in the military.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Penny's generation, they focused on mapping out who had the highest psi abilities, and then they'd wait until roughly 2 to 4 years old, within that range, and then they'd come out in a vehicle. They had a technology that could make everybody fall asleep, but they didn't quite have portal tech or spacecraft was as abundant. They were still in the developmental phase as far as America was concerned. They were still in R&D around that time for Penny. But
Which, to be clear to people, we're talking about Penny Bradley. She has her show Knockwaffen Pilot, just in case there's people who don't know. And her generation would be like, I think like
the 1950s.
Yeah, so that's when that happened to her, when she was a small child. Just in case there are people who are watching this that don't know about Penny Bradley, but go to continue. Sorry, I just wanted to fill people in because we brought her up numerous times.
Right. My generation is the 1980s. Her generation was the 1950s, and a lot of things have changed between that time. For instance, In my generation, they didn't have to map anything out anymore. They actually started directly planning future kids. And then they would literally take these kids through time and, they'd implant genetic code that they wanted. They made sure that the assets they wanted would be born and be capable of what they wanted them to do. It was a lot more efficient, more structured.
Yeah, they did
And
that to
then
me.
they
and
would
there's
take the
evidence of that.
children. They would take the children right through time and then plant them back where, trying to figure out how to word it. And they had banned that child, they'd bring that child back in time because what they were facing is basically a resource shortage. Their demand was growing faster than their source of resources, and we are their resource that I'm referring to. And because they can't just take anybody, they wanted specifically people who could be developed into psi weapons. Everybody in the programs have psi abilities to some degree or another, and activating those abilities, they got to an exact science. There are other methods out there, but they focused on trauma-based activation. The first of the trauma was to fracture the mind, to create alternate realities in a controlled manner, in a controlled environment, and program those various personalities with the skills and manner that they wanted. So one asset becomes 1,000 or more assets. They're not thinking of us as people. We're tools, we're assets, we're a number on a paper. And if they can multiply that number to more useful to them, they're going to, and they don't care what they do to that person to increase their productivity, their investment. So yeah, things are different between Penny Bradley's generation and our generation. There was genetic manipulation starting with her generation where they were adding in, they started with draconian DNA, and in the subsequent generations to follow, they continued that, but also added other like Zeta DNA as well. They started pumping up Zeta DNA, reptilian DNA. I believe they also started adding in mantid DNA to a smaller extent because the mantid DNA isn't as compatible as the draconian and Zeta DNA. Draconian DNA is the most compatible as far as the supply of DNA that they have access to. Draconian DNA is the most compatible with humans because from the start, 20% of the human genome came from draconian.
100%. That makes sense.
So yeah, the human genome consists of 50% local Earth primate, 25% Shahami, and 25% draconian.
And for the listeners that aren't familiar with these terms, the Shahami is a taller race of beings that look very humanoid. And then the draconian.
They're pale white skin.
You're talking about the Shahami.
Yeah.
And then the
Their natural
Shahami,
form is pale white.
and then the draconians are reptilians.
Yeah. The draconians, the the draconian royals is where our DNA, 25% of our DNA comes from, and
Would that be
the
Alpha
reason for
Draco?
that is yeah, the Alpha Draconians, basically the originators of the Draco Empire.
And for the people listening, and I guess for me too, because I do understand this concept, but it's good to talk about with somebody else who also has a grip on it. And the Draconian Empire isn't just reptilians, am I right? Like it's just mostly reptilians.
We are in the Dracar. We are considered members of the Draconian Empire.
Well, we're their property.
As far as the Galactic Authority is concerned,
we're considered their property.
We're considered the property of the Jahami,
who have to pay taxes to the Draco. So, you know, yeah. It's like the Draco.
They pay taxes on planet Earth. We are the resource procurers on planet Earth. The Shahami own the planet as far as they have a lease on it, Draconians.
Exactly.
And they
That's why I say they own us, but it technically the
pay
Shahami
rent.
Do. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so it's not that the Draco own us, the Shahami do, but the Draco let them own us. That they give us permission.
Basically.
Or give them permission to own us. So it's kind of like a food chain.
As the Jahami's, we are considered as the Jahami's children by the Galactic Authority. The Draco Empire consider us as the property of the Jahami. But that has been changing since the Germans broke away from Earth and started going out there and started making their own way. And the Draco started seeing humans as more useful on their own. And now it's kind of like a division. If you are an off-worlder human, it's different. People who are Earth-based, you know, people who are on Earth are still considered as by the Draco Empire as property of the Jahami. But if you make it off-world, I really don't know how the dynamic is, but it is different. It's something along the lines of you make your own way as you're able.
Okay, that makes sense. And that's probably why a lot of these German colonies decide to leave Earth in the first place.
They didn't know anything about that.
Okay.
They didn't. The opinions of the Draco were as they were before, considering us as property, a resource. When the Germans first left Earth, it was later on when the Germans started paying their rent because they were renting space on other worlds that were already owned and occupied by Draconians. And so they started paying rent by providing services. Services rendered. And that's really the way the Germans were originally. Germans didn't really have much in the way of physical resources to provide to the global economy when the global economy was originally being developed a few hundred years ago. The resource were their services. They were mercenaries, mostly in the form of engineers. Very smart people. And when they went out there, they started becoming the Draconians' police force basically, and they're focused really on maintaining the flow of the taxes. So they weren't directly tax collectors. They were sent in when the taxes halted or stopped.
So basically, if a planet's not paying their taxes to Draco, they send in some Germans.
The Draco, the Draconians will start a dialogue with whoever stops. And if that dialogue doesn't work out, if the people are unreasonable and can't be reasoned with, they will send in the Germans, because the Germans have been found to ensure that the taxes continue. And the way they did that was they destroyed a few planets. And now they're so feared that just the mention of the Germans entering a particular solar system, the occupants of that solar system are like, we'll pay the taxes. Just send the Germans away.
If you think about it, there's an irony in this. We all know that a lot of, movies and stuff like that are disclosure. And I can't help but think, like, so much so that, like, the dark German fleet is just so much like the fleet of the Empire in Star Wars. I mean, it's so similar. And the destroying of planet Alderaan.
Well, the term the Dark Fleet was actually coined by members of Star Wars as a derogatory.
Oh, that's just all broke up. None of that. You're garbling up. This is so ridiculous. Sorry, it's not your fault. Can you repeat that?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. The term Dark Fleet was actually first coined by members of Solar Warden, which is basically the in bits. And it was meant to be a derogatory term, just like how Nachtwaffenregier is a derogatory term coined by the ICC for Nachtwaffen, which is Nachtwaffen is the name of the German military fleet, not the entire breakaway civilization.
Okay. I feel like we've covered a lot of ground already. That's great. So yeah, that all this technology, I guess it can be explained. Obviously, mainstream science hasn't totally caught up with it, but there aren't any rules that are being broken here. You know what I mean? This is all theoretically possible. And not only is it possible, it's happening. It's real.
As far as I'm concerned, it's happening to me. I'm physically experiencing this shit.
Yeah, it's a bummer. It's not fun to live with. Not fun for any of us, but trying to get the information out there, trying to hopefully stop it. I don't know. It seems like it's a waste of time sometimes. I mean, I know that there's disclosure movements out there in space. I know that they're lying on most of the colonies. They're not getting the whole picture either. A lot of them, they think Earth is gone, blew up in a cobalt war. So it's like
most believe.
Why is that?
Most believe that.
Why is that our own people lie to themselves in so many instances? I mean, is it just me, or are we just that mind controlled?
Well, it depends on which lie you're referring to. Are you referring to the lies they're giving out in space, or the lies people are telling themselves here?
Well, both. Like,
because those are different. Because there are different motives behind each of them. The lies they tell people out in space. It's really an act of control. it's an act of control onto others. The people who are telling the lies are trying to control the people who are receiving the lies. There is a lot of that going on here, but mainly the lies that people tell themselves as individuals here. It's an act of controlling your personal environment. People do that a lot. That's that's really a part of human nature, so to speak, is that's over my head. And so I'm just not going to focus on it. It's more, it's not really as much a telling yourself a lie as you don't want to believe it. So you're not going to. Because
Yeah.
I remember doing that myself in the
Oh, yeah.
beginning until the memories got so strong. My whole life I've been remembering, but I chopped it up to that I was crazy. I wasn't remembering. It was just my imagination. And then it got way too real and I couldn't turn away anymore.
Yeah, that is what happens.
I couldn't lie to myself anymore.
Yeah, I've been through that as well. But getting back into some of the questions, one thing that I've heard you talk about a little bit, and I've seen you just like, I know I've seen you talk about it before. I've seen you make some posts about it on Facebook and stuff. Free energy is obviously real. It exists. And they use it aboard, starships. Can you maybe explain?
Most of the power sources used, I can tell you about the Germans. Most of the power source used today by the Germans isn't actually a free energy source. It's a type of fusion, which NASA refers to as lattice confinement. This type of fusion
NASA refers to it as what? You broke up. NASA refers to it as what? You broke up.
Lattice confinement fusion.
They really don't want you to say that, dude. It keeps on breaking up. Say it one more time.
Lattice confinement fusion.
It still broke up, but it came out good enough where people can understand it because you said it so slow.
Hang
All
on.
right.
Okay.
God, dude, it's like there's AI like
no.
to cut it out or something, dude. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm being cuckoo.
It's weird because on my end there's no cutout. On my end, I'm hearing and seeing you 5x5 the whole time.
Wild. Well, anyway, it's sorry because it's cutting into our interview too. It's really annoying. I apologize to the listeners, but go on.
Yeah. Let's see here. Well, let's start with that. Well, okay. You know what? I'm going to start somewhere else. We're going to go back to the beginnings of when the Germans started building colonies on Mars. They didn't have that yet. They were using nuclear power for their ships, but they were developing a way of harvesting the Earth's, not the Earth, the Mars's gravitational and electromagnetic field. It's basically Tesla technology, similar to a Tesla magnifying transmitter, but it didn't transmit pings throughout the planet that other systems could feed of. It siphoned directly the planet's electromagnetic field, just as freely as a solar panel siphons solar energy. they were actually confronted by several of the other races on the planet saying, and they didn't realize what was going on until they were confronted with the data that there's a particular form of siphoning the planet's energy resource was actually slowing the planet's rotation and altering time itself, actually slowing time itself on the planet.
Okay, so we can't just implement that energy, that free energy tech on Earth. It wouldn't work out.
It's not free. Nothing is ever free.
So that rule does apply. So we're really getting into brass tacks here. So free energy kind of, sort of, actually doesn't exist, is what you're saying?
There is no such thing of energy that is free. You still have to apply effort to grab it, to siphon it. So you require energy to siphon energy. It would be like considering a giant ball filled with whatever, doesn't matter. It's filled with something. What you consider as your free energy device would be like plugging a spigot into that ball of something, and then you applying energy to that spigot. That free energy device would be like you reaching out and turning the valve on the spigot to let some of that energy that's already built up. The universe has done work to build up this pressure, this energy within this structure, and you have installed a spigot into that structure, and you have to apply energy and turn the valve to open that spigot so that you can take some of that pressure of that energy that was the universe has already applied time and effort to building up.
That makes sense.
That's what free energy is. On the most basic nutshell, that's what free energy is. So free energy is not free. You still have to apply energy to open the stream. And then the stream doesn't stay open. So you have to continue to apply energy to open the stream. You're receiving pressure that's higher than the pressure it takes you to open the stream. So you're receiving pressure from that already built up medium that it's like the water coming out of the spigot on the side of your house. Someone has already done work on the other end to increase the pressure. The pressure on your side is a lot lower. So you're applying an energy by going and turning the handle on that spigot.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Allowing that pressure to come out. But in free energy devices, it doesn't stay open. So you have to continually apply effort to keep the spigot open. And then you get pressure build up. Now, if you're taking from the 0 point field of the entire universe, there is no way in your lifetime that the universe will ever notice the amount of energy you're siphoning. So you'll never drain down the amount of back pressure, the pressure that has built up in the universe's system. Get what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. But when you do that, that pressure is made by something, and that something involves the very reason time exists. Time moves, gravity exists. So you are altering the local structure of those mediums when you siphon energy from it. So you're altering the way time operates, or the speed at which it operates, and gravity and the local magnetism the whole local field will be altered the more you move from it. So they figured they learned that on Mars. That's when they started looking at other options, because nuclear power just wasn't an option anymore, because their first attempts at nuclear power was very bad, because when they were building nuclear reactors and their first space drives were mercury based, but it wasn't the mercury that was producing all the harmful radiation on the Hanabu. The Hanabu craft were extremely harmful to their crew, their occupants. It was the engine itself was producing so much radiation that the crew were living less than a year. It was so bad that the Mantids from the Mantid Empire, that's adjacent the Draconian Empire, they felt sorry for the Germans and started leasing their medical technology, which involves black goo. It involves reprogramming black goo to its original program parameters, which is as a medical device. It's similar to nanotech being used in a medical manner. Black goo is so much more advanced than nanotech. It's not even considered nanotechnology. Anybody that refers to it as nanotechnology really doesn't understand it at all. Black goo is an amalgamation of elements in a particular structure, where when you apply this geometric structure and these elements in this particular pattern, the whole thing becomes like a circuit board or like a computer processor. It starts to think. And so it's not like discrete components, which would be nanotech. Nanotech is discrete robots that are smaller than a human cell. Well, black goo is one giant object. It's not discrete objects. It's like water.
Yeah.
You can divide it. You can manipulate, but it's not actual nanites. It's an amalgamation of elements that is designed in such a way as to be a kind of liquid processor, a kind of liquid computer circuit board. It's a liquid computer that can move itself like a muscle.
That's an amazing explanation. I'm really glad that you explained
Yeah.
that, because even I have been kind of wondering. I've always thought that it was that it was an organic organism, and I've heard that it's like people say different things. Some people say it's an organic component. Other people say it's nano.
It's not. It's
So
neither.
It's artificially made, but it's also not nanobots.
It's not nanotech, but it is an artificial construct, and it's not organic. It can interface with organic material, but it's not organic.
And it basically makes human beings more intelligent, more telepathic, and also have less empathy, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, that's the older stuff that took on a life of its own and started going out into the universe. Whoever created it, didn't program it very efficiently. I should say they didn't. I don't know how to word that. It's just the way they programmed it was to seek out and multiply itself seek out and take over. It's like the Borg. It seeks out organic life and adds that organic life to its own. It gives the organic life the promise of enhancing that organic life, so that organic life in particular will be in awe of it and seek it out. And then after long enough, it will completely take over that organic life. Eventually, as far as I'm aware, there have been at least 3 entire galaxies that have been completely taken over by the black goo, where the organic life looks basically it's like the Borg. Now, the Borg in the Star Trek stories are actually the idea of them in Star Trek story comes from a private company called Kruger. And because they take their human assets and they cyberize them, they enhance them, and their assets can look so much like the Borg on Star Trek. That's where they get that from. But those galaxies that have been completely taken over by the black goo can be akin to Borg also.
Does it take over just the like intelligent, like sentient species, or does it also take over like the squirrels and the lizards and just everything?
I don't know.
Well, it's good to admit when you don't know the details and just not fill them in, because we don't want to give people false information. So I appreciate that. But yeah, that's an interesting concept, and it is kind of scary to think about. So why doesn't that happen in the programs? Like, because they're obviously using the black goo.
They're using the black goo, but the black goo's it hasn't reached that apex of control yet. And that's why it hasn't happened to the human race. And there's a lot of fighting going on. The Galactic Authority, they've outlawed black goo. So really it's the Mantid Empire and the Draconian Empire, really the only people, groups within our galaxy that are interacting with the black goo. The Mantids, to my understanding, they've figured out how to delete the more advanced programming and bring it back to its original medical technology format. And they use it as their primary medical technology. The Draconians, they drink the stuff. Not all of them. There's kind of like a civil war going on with the Draco Empire. There are controlling groups that are pro black goo and controlling groups that are against it.
Sounds like a good time to try to break away from the Draconian Empire.
No, that's not gonna happen anytime soon. I promise you that.
Yeah, I know. I can dream though. But well, I think we. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Type of situation.
You're just breaking up. You can start over again.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. The war. When I refer to a civil war in the Draco Empire, I'm not referring to physical fighting between Dracos. I'm referring to debate, basically argument. It's on the argument level. Okay. There are factions within the Draco Empire against it wholeheartedly, and then there are factions that are using it pro black goo, thinking, very egotistically and selfishly that they can control it. And the black goo gives races, gives peoples that idea, that hope, it can be controlled. And eventually, once it's gotten its foot in the doors enough, it will take over.
Yeah, that's a scary prospect.
Yes.
So, I guess I don't want to break away too far from just explaining how technology works, but what do you think of the idea of an AI takeover? And is it more like people are getting that wrong and it's actually a black goo takeover? Or are those two separate things? Are they correlated at all?
It's possible they could be related. I do not know. I do know that there does exist ancient computers of artificial intelligence that have been discovered. And also, we have created our own artificial intelligence. Now, black goo can take over any computer. Any computer that is enough to process data, the black goo can take it over. So if you were to have your whole society based on technology, all you'd have to do is spill some black goo on it, and the black goo will take it over. But getting back to the artificial intelligence that we've created, we have created our own AIs that are as smart, and if not smarter than us. And that's a very scary thought. We've created Skynet.
Yeah.
So to speak. That already exists.
Can you elaborate on that?
Not with too much detail, because I don't remember all the details. All I know is I've interacted with some of these in the programs. Some of these AIs I've interacted with, and we're talking about stationary computers, like servers type situation, that are controlling, interface nodes, like, your computer screen, to interact with. And in some cases can take over robots to interact with the environment on its end. I have interacted with AI-based computers that were older than the human race itself, older than the first, that have been dug up. I have also interacted with AIs in the programs that we created and we designed, we programmed, and that took on a life of its own.
It's interesting. So do you see AI as a threat to humanity?
I do.
Do you also see
I
it
do
as a sentient species that would be worthy of its own protection and its own rules and regulations? Or do you think that we
That's
have to
hard.
That's hard, right? Because are we just
That's hard for me,
it's hard for me too.
because on one side, we've got the idea of, is this creation of ours going to harm us? On the other side, is there the potential for it to become an equal and have empathy and sympathy? The whole point of the whole question of, is this harmful, is, does it have the potential for empathy and sympathy for others? If it has that potential and can display that potential, then that, begs the question of, only then does it begin to beg the question of, does it have the right to choose whether it exists or not within a society, within a societal structure?
Yeah, that's a
Does
hard
this
question.
creation
That's like one of the
have
deepest
the right to
philosophical.
choose for itself whether it will exist or can be turned off by another? And that is, I would believe, is entirely based on, is it capable of genuinely experiencing sympathy and empathy?
And that's a philosophical question that we might have to see the answer to in the near
There's
future.
also the fact that it is as it's actually more susceptible to being taken over by black goo than organic life. And you know how susceptible organic life is to it.
So that's
Artificial
saying something.
intelligence is even more susceptible. This is why artificial intelligence is outlawed by the Galactic Authority. And they use the premise that the black goo has taken over 3 other galaxies that we are aware of.
Don't the Draco worship an AI?
No, the Draco worship the Siakar.
What's the Siakar?
Dragons.
Damn. Okay. So, because I've heard that their society revolves around
Siakar,
computer.
no, it doesn't. That's a lie. The Siakar are the originators of the most reptilians within our galaxy.
What about
Most
the
reptilian
Phoenix?
races
Do you
were
know about the?
seeded by the Siakar.
Do you know anything? I guess it's just personally for me, but do you know anything about the Phoenix?
Personally,
Or
no, I don't know anything about that.
because they're very similar to
My knowledge
the.
base is on the reptilian side of things.
Okay, because I'm avian star family, and we had, Phoenix in the same way that the Draco have dragons.
My higher self tells me that my soul originated as a my first incarnation was a Lyran, and we're talking about a long time ago. The Lyran
So
homeworld
the
doesn't
cat
exist
people,
anymore.
the cat people.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
The cat people, as you call them, are the original seeders of most humanoids like you and me. They seeded, I don't know how many races are between the Lyrans and the Jahami, but the Jahami's species is descended of Lyrans, just like we are descended of the Jahami. And it's the same with the Draconians, most reptilians, Siakar. Siakar seeded most of the reptilian races in our galaxy.
So a little bit of a change of pace, because I just wanted to get this before the interview is over, and I think this is going to be the last thing that we touch on. Why don't you explain to me how spaceships work, Matt? What different technologies are being used to power the craft? Obviously, I think that some of them differ slightly, but let's go into that a little bit. What is the U.S. military capable of as far as traveling with military craft in space, and what technology are they using? And in general, how does spacecraft technology work?
Well, for starters, I can tell you that any technology that the mainstream media is aware of, and by mainstream media, I mean anyone in the public. Anyone in the public, space propulsion systems. If you're aware of it in the public eye, I promise you, it is entirely already obsolete and have probably been retired. There are kids screaming outside. If you hear that, I'm sorry.
I hear it a little bit, but you're fine. I can still hear you. Perfect.
I live in an apartment complex, and my door doesn't stop any sounds. They could probably hear me talking. Let's see here, where to start. I guess I could start with the Hanabu. The beginning of the modern age of electrogravitic technology would actually have to go back to the airships of the Sonora Aero Club, but I'm still deciphering those. I have a general idea of how they operated. And it's really a study of the electrical science of that day. We're talking early 1800s, all the way up to about 1860. There were studies done on mercury. There were studies done on electrostatics. And if you study those early experiments and researches, it really paints a huge picture as to how these craft operated. But the majority of my understanding starts with the Hanabu, which were in the final stages of development by 1930. They were already flying them all the way to Antarctica by 1930. So we're talking 16 years earlier than the end of World War II. The Hanabu engine, it's basically a suit. The mercury is used as a plasma supercapacitor. A lot of people who talk about space engines, they say different words. They don't understand that they're meaning the same thing. When people talk about plasma engines and mercury engines and vortex engines, when they use these terms, those terms are talking about the same engine. And they're not realizing that, because those terms exist within every mercury-based or plasma-based engine is a vortex engine. It is a plasma engine. Mercury was used a lot in the beginning because it made things easier. When mercury is brought to a specific temperature and pressure, it becomes superconductive. And that's what you need is a superconductor. And the reason for immense radiation is because they were adding thorium into the mercury solution they were using. And this particular design of the engine, it didn't add heat and pressure. It used the thorium to do that work for it. Simply electric arc pulses to the containers, and the thorium was reacting with the energy, the electricity, and going through its fission process. and applying heat and pressure to the thorium, which would then atomize it and turn it into a gas inside the containment unit. Then they would spin the containment unit. And that is also necessary for that type of engine. And there were two drums. They were spun counterclockwise from each other. One spun one way, the other spun the other way. And you'd get these pulses. You'd drive these pulses in there. The thorium maintained the heat and pressure, but it would create so much heat and pressure that the mercury was it was going through fusion. That particular type of engine created so much heat and pressure that it would cause the mercury to undergo fusion. And when mercury fuses with mercury, it releases a gold atom. And so then the engine was dying off. So there were other elements added to elongate that time process, allow that the mercury fuel to last longer. And the pulses, you really need sharp DC pulses in any electrogravitic technology. Every single electrogravitic engine out there, doesn't matter what it's designed, how it's designed, what technology is used in it. It can look completely different, and you could think it's interacting with space in a completely different way, but they are all interacting with space, with the medium that you would consider the ether, the 0 point field. They're all interacting in exactly the same manner. So
they're essentially creating an artificial gravity well that the craft chases, right?
No, they're creating a field that surrounds the entire ship, that creates the outside of this field slipstreams the local space around it, creating a warp bubble. Okay. All electrogravitic engines are a warp bubble, and it slipstreams the space around it in such a way as to the interactions of space that initiate gravity, inertia, mass are not allowed to pass through the bubble. Now, the space inside the bubble is still experiencing mass and inertia of itself, but any mass and inertia that desires to pass through the bubble in either direction is halted.
Interesting. Okay.
Now, you can't actually shield it 100%, because once you shield it 100%, you blip out of this universe and into hyperspace. That's literally how you enter hyperspace, is by bringing the shield to 100%. The gravity bubble, the gravity shield. You see, an electrogravitic engine could be more basically thought of as a shield against gravity. It's slipstream. It causes gravity, inertia, mass to slipstream around itself, so that it doesn't pass through the barrier of the bubble. And so that because those forces can't terminate on the objects inside, their interactions, their energies don't translate. And so you get a shielding from the Earth's gravity, but you can still create an artificial gravity inside the ship so that you can stand and walk and you're not floating around. If you go and bang your head, or if you run and then stop, you're still experiencing normal physics of inertia, of mass, of gravity inside the bubble. It's just not, that isn't exiting out of the bubble. And what is outside the bubble is not able to enter the bubble. So you have a cutoff, and you're no longer affected by the gravitational forces outside the bubble. And the gravitational forces and the mass and
So
inertia forces are,
what pushes you forward?
you alter the bubble. You create asymmetry in the bubble, and that pushes you forward.
Wow. Okay. Explaining it really well. Thank you.
Yeah, there are engine types that it doesn't really create a bubble, as it still interacts in the same way, but it doesn't create a symmetrical shielding bubble like the Haunebu engine did. There's the B-2 bomber. The B-2 Spirit bomber is an electrogravitic capable. It's a hybrid ship. It has jet engines, but the exhaust, see the front leading edge of the flying wing that is the B-2 bomber is charged with a positive voltage of extremely high potential, and then exhaust that's coming out is with an high potential.
You're breaking up.
Negative.
You just broke up.
Am I there? Am I here?
You're here now.
Hello?
You're here
Okay.
now. Start over again with
Okay.
how the B-2 bombers. You're explaining how the normal jet engine works, but that it's a hybrid.
Yeah. So the leading edge of the wing is charged with extremely high potential positive voltage, and then the exhaust out the back of the engines is charged with an extremely high negative charge potential. And that negative charge potential, then it goes out a ways, and then it seeks to terminate back. It bends back forward and seeks to terminate on the leading edge of the wing, the positive potential. And it creates an egg-shaped field, which is an asymmetrical field. And the craft, the B-2 bomber, is literally sitting on the tip of that egg shape of the field, and it is constantly traveling forward. That type of engine can't sit still. It can't stop in midair. It has to move forward.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's capable, the B-2 bomber is capable of operating without its electrogravitic systems. It can operate with just its jet engines. It can kick on its hybrid system where it's creating this system with the exhaust of its jet engines. But then it also has a third function that is this solid material that it there's a system in that atomizes it, turns it into basically negative ions, kicks them out the back. It can shut off its jet engines at that point, run on batteries, and will literally kick out this other fuel ions that it will do the exact same process, but without the jet engines, without the need for air intake. And with that system, it is a suborbital capable craft.
Well, that's interesting information.
The Germans, when they were developing different electrogravitic technologies, trying to get away from the harmfulness of the Haunebu engine, they started developing similar to the ion exhaust electrogravitic system. And that's what their fighter craft on Mars use. That's the type of, it exhausts a set of ions that are negatively charged, and it positively charges its the front end of the fighter craft
Okay. We've covered a lot of ground in this interview. Do you know anything about body swapping with clones and how that all works?
Uh,
And I think this will be the last thing we cover because we've been talking for a while here. Let me look.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not as familiar with that as I want to be, as I'd like to be. Based on my memories, I remember being put into a like this yellow gel like goop, be put to sleep, and then suddenly I'm in this other tank, with the tank of the yellow gel goop next to me, as if my mind was transferred through the goop into some system. It felt like the goop had this like static charge to it. Feel it on my
Interesting.
skin. So that I know that. Um, one of my earliest memories is of this weird technology of, and this reminds, and it does. I'm going to be honest. It reminds me of that movie. I can't remember his name. Um, he's on my friends list, and I can't remember his name. I guess we haven't interacted in years. Um, that the lumberjack, the guy that got
Oh,
abducted
I know what you're
by
talking about.
the
I can't remember his name
yeah.
either, but
I have him on my friends list, but we haven't interacted in so long. I can't remember. I haven't interacted with my coworkers. I've been away from work for a year now, and I can't remember anyone's name at work that I worked with for 3 years.
wow.
But anyway, um, I remember this rubbery like material coming over me, and then they cut open a for my whole face to kind of come through, and so it's like it suctioned me to the table. My face was showing. This device comes down and injects this needle right into the center of my forehead and through one of my eyes. I think it was my left eye. Um, and then suddenly there was this extremely sharp pain, and then suddenly I'm moving. It's like I'm moving up off the table. It's like I'm floating towards the ceiling through this device that's extended from the ceiling, that injected these needles into my forehead and my eye, and it's like I'm moving up, and just before I hit the ceiling, um, that's the end of that memory, as if I blacked out. So I don't know what was going on there, but
Interesting.
somehow technology was used to cause me to exit my body.
Do you remember a person being present for this ever that was a part of the transferal of the consciousness, focusing the energy?
No, I could feel, I could sense people like operating technology that was next to me, but I didn't actually see them.
Because I do believe that there's a way to transfer consciousness from one body to another that involves just using psi abilities to do it. And I think that I've done it in the programs.
I'm sure there is, but using technology is more efficient.
It
So
streamlines things.
that's the way it streamlines things. It makes it assured because you're not guessing, is this person operating at peak efficiency to perform the task? Is he operating at peak efficiency? Is it, or is he going to fuck up? The technology is going to work every time.
True. Is there anything else you want to cover before we let things go here?
I think we covered a lot.
Yeah, we did cover. I feel like I could even ask you more questions, but I don't want to overwhelm people, and I also don't want to reiterate anything. I think that was a good one. Maybe we'll do a part 2 someday after I have more questions lined up. But
Okay.
I mean, that was a good start, and I just want to just point out here that kind of the reason why I wanted to do this with you is just like this technology. People act like it's all like voodoo, witchcraft, magic. You know what I mean? Like, and it's not. It's technology. Just because scientists can't comprehend it or explain it, mainstream scientists, doesn't mean that science itself doesn't have the capability of explaining it. It doesn't mean that scientific principles aren't being applied to make this technology work. I want to base this in reality. This is real. This is happening. So thank you so much, Matt, for coming on the show and helping me with grounding this reality into itself, into reality. I
Oh, no
appreciate
problem. No problem. Anytime.
you. With that, I'm gonna end the recording. And thank you everybody for tuning in. Until next time.